Hello, Ben here. Hope you're well and welcome to episode 28 of Benjy's Cafe podcast. Joining me in Benjy's Cafe this week is a man who, every time I hear him speak, literally blows my mind. Andy Ramage. Andy is co-founder of the 1 Year No Beer movement and the Dryy Alcohol-Free App. Best-selling author of the 28-Day Alcohol-Free Challenge and Let's Do This, Andy is one of the world's leading voices in how we view sobriety and alcohol-free living. After injury ended his professional football career, Andy moved to the city where he successfully built multi-million-pound businesses. After a short break from alcohol, the profound results unlocked new levels of health, energy and purpose, and Andy has never looked back. In this episode, we discuss the joy of rediscovering life without alcohol and the huge positive impact that has on life, mental health, career and relationships.
When I stopped drinking, all of a sudden, it's like, there's a sunrise. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Have you seen this sunrise out the door? Go and look at that sunrise. There's a sunset. Never noticed that sunset before. Let's just go and watch a sunset. Let's hug. And what I realised is, like, think about that. Alcohol, even as an average drinker, was stealing the joy out of life. I mean, that is just, it's horrific when you think about it. It was stealing the joy from my life. It was making it feel great. Removed alcohol, boom, full technical.
His words help me every day, and his world is a beautiful, motivational place that I'm so excited to share with you all. Welcome to Benjy's Cafe podcast, Andy Ramage. Good morning, Andy. How are you?
Very good. That was a nice intro. I'm glad I got to hear that intro. I like that a lot.
Oh, well, it's great to see you. It's a lovely, it's a bit of a soggy Monday up here in Liverpool, but how are you? Have you had a good start to the week?
Flying. Yeah, I've been up. I go for a big long walk, hit the gym, hit the swim, did some work, and it's still only 12 o'clock. That's the way to start the week.
Oh, God, you're dead right. It's kind of unbelievable, isn't it? I'm 518 days alcohol-free now, Andy, and I know, it's like a woo-ha, woo-ha, indoor firework display, cue music. And you're dead right. The productivity I now have in the morning, my partner, she's up filming at 5 in the morning, so I'm up anyway with the dogs. That lovely morning cup of coffee, bit of fresh air, bit of a workout, but I can get so much done. And then if I'm ready for a snooze at 3:15 when countdown comes on, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole sort of world gets turned upside down a little bit, whereas my world was all about sort of late nights and evenings. It's all now about 5 a.m. starts, and just really some days I reflect and get to midday or just beyond and think, I've sort of done a whole day here. I've got like the balance of the day really to do as I wish with.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And I really want to thank you. When I first, decided to choose an alcohol-free life, Andy, I started to see your content online and literally I was just blown away. I was like, oh my God, I get it. That's how I feel. That's how I was feeling. And it's like suddenly, in my head, we're in the funfair of life. You're like the ringmaster of the circus of happiness. And it's just wonderful. Did you ever think you could feel that good when, your football career ended early and you moved into the city? Did you ever feel like you could grasp life again?
This is something I'm pondering a lot at the moment. I think, like yourself, I'm about to approach 50 in the next couple of weeks. So there is that sort of deep reflection. I think you get a lot of time to really reflect deeply, especially when you don't drink, because you remove so much of the noise and that just unnecessary baggage and tiredness and lethargy and all that jazz. So I think, on reflection, there was a bit of me, there was a hole in my soul. There's a good way to describe it. There was something within me that was saying, this is just not right. Something's not right with this life setup that you have, which was on the face of it ridiculously successful versus that 1 yardstick. And I only had 1 yardstick, which was monetary income. I thought basically the more of that you generate, in theory, the better it is and the happier you'll be. And then realized clearly that's not working very well for most people. And I looked around at most people, in the city in those type of jobs, and broken bodies, broken homes, broken minds. And it was that real sense of, that's just not going to be my story. I actually don't care about the money, which on the face of it, from where I were, it looked like that would be absolute madness. But I knew there was more. So I knew there was more. I knew that there was a way to feel more fulfilled and happier. So I sensed it was there. Did I know I was ever going to experience it on the other side of being alcohol-free? Absolutely not. I had no idea that that was going to be the key that unlocked the door. But no, I find myself now on my verge of my 50s. I genuinely couldn't be happier. I get to do what I do, which I love. I get to work with the people that I love. I get to spend real quality time, family and friends, and exercise. And yeah, I feel really grateful for the adventure that this alcohol-free has taken me.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it, Andy? Usually Sunday would be the Sunday blues, work anxiety, hungover, topping up, just like, oh, I'm cooking a Sunday roast. I know, I'll pretend I'm Keith Bloody Floyd and open a bottle of Merlot for the hell of it, And I was saying to my partner last night, we're having our kitchen done, so we got, I'm probably the world's oldest Boy Scout at the moment. We've got a makeshift table, we've got the microwave and kettle set up in the dining room. Everything's a mess, there's dust everywhere. But I said to her, we were mid-microwave roast, and I was like, darling, I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm so happy. I'm so excited about the week. I've got a fantastic chat with you. I know that I'm going to be waking up early, anxiety-free, just ready to kind of grasp life. And it's that feeling, isn't it? That kind of almost, that freedom, isn't it? How did you feel when you first experienced that, when you became alcohol-free, Andy? Were you just like, this is mind-blowing?
Yeah, there was an element of that, and it took me quite a while to crack it, I must admit. And I think that is something worth just touching upon, that even as a middle lane drinker, and I'll set that up, someone that would drink averagely, someone that would drink averagely, someone that would drink moderately, not at all. I think that's about 70% of the adult population, outside of those that are physically dependent and those that are abstinent. So that middle lane, that was me. Was I at the upper end of that middle lane? Probably. Yeah. But who isn't? It's the truth of it, who isn't drinking a bit too much? So I started and stopped on numerous occasions because I found it really difficult. I had that real socially pressurized job to drink because I was a broker in the city, but it was also how I celebrated, how I commiserated, how I did business, how I dealt with a stressful day, how I dealt with a day that ended in one. It's just like the ridiculous, like when you get some distance from it and you look back, you're just going, what are we all doing? This is completely mental. We're like, this thing is so just all over our lives. Everywhere you look, there isn't an excuse to have a few drinks. So for me, it was that trying to get started, which I found difficult and stumbled many times, but I didn't give up. That was the important bit for me. I think I didn't, feel embarrassed or ashamed. It was like, no, I'm just going to keep going. I think there's something in this for me. But it was around that 28-day mark that everything started to change. That was the moment that I started to notice a big difference. I remember I'd slept like a baby, like really slept well. And genuinely, on reflection, I don't think I'd slept like that for decades. Yeah. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Because as we know, alcohol destroys the quality of your sleep. So I always think even if you're having that 1 or 2 drinks in the week, a couple more at the weekend, you never really fully recover from that. So it probably takes your best part of 3 days to get over those few drinks in terms of your sleep. Therefore, you can easily, most people can back-to-back a decade, probably back-to-back a decade or more, where they've never ever experience what proper sleep is like. I mean, that was nuts. So that alone was a revelation, that waking up feeling excited about a Saturday morning. And I do remember it because I wrote about this in our book, The 28-Day Alcohol-Free Challenge, that I woke up on it Saturday morning. I was about 28 days in. The sun was shining. My wife, lovely wife Tara, was on top form. I woke up full of energy. I'd slept really well. The kids came bouncing in because my kids were younger then, sort of 6 and 8, as they do. And I was really excited for them to be there. Really excited for the day ahead. Knew I was going to get stuff done. I just felt good in a way I hadn't felt genuinely in decades. And that was a real big moment for me, because then it was really easy for me to contrast it, wind the clock back a month, and I would have woken up that morning tired, jaded, anxiety. The kids would have bounced in and I wouldn't have wanted to even really play with them. I would have been thinking, how can I get more time to try and sleep this off? My energy for the day would have been lackluster. I would have been wanting to just sit around and plonk in front of the TV. Like, the contrast was so dramatic. For me, it was like, this could be magical, this thing. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, and it is completely magical, isn't it? Likewise, I would kid myself that my little quiet time, I'm going to take the paper down to the pub to watch a bit of footy on a Saturday afternoon. That'd be my little time to chill, but it's rubbish. I'm just there to knock back 4 pints in an hour. I usually didn't even watch the football. And it's it's that feeling of getting your weekends back and the world out there. It is, like you say, just magical, like the beauty of a walk, the beauty of waking up at a weekend and just like, oh my God, I can get so much from this. And not only recharging mentally and physically, but you're just the best version of yourself for, like you say, your loved ones and your family, aren't you?
Yeah, and actually, if we even get into the neurochemistry of it all, and obviously over the last decade, I've been on this alcohol-free adventure. Again, that 28 days turned into over 10 years now. And the reason being, because I blooming love it. Like, why would I ever give that up? Like, I'm just not going back. There doesn't have to be an end date on it. Why would I do that thing now? It makes absolutely, in my brain, no sense anymore. It's like, I'm just not doing that because I know what that means. And I don't want all of that anxiety and tiredness and can't be asked and not being the parent I want to be or the partner that I want to be. I just don't want that in my life. Therefore, I'm never going to drink that stuff. You could surround me with alcohol and leave me stuck in there for days on end. I'm never going to crack open a can or open a cork because why the hell would I? But if we get into some of the neurochemistry, as I started to understand that, what you realize is that, and we forget this, and I never, you never connect these dots when you're drinking, right? Because it's just not on your radar to connect the dots. But basically what happens, along with lots of different things, when you drink alcohol, it disrupts your neurochemistry. So that beautiful balance in your brain becomes very unbalanced, and then it's desperately trying to scramble around to maintain equilibrium. One of the things that gets spiked is dopamine. So dopamine's that feel-good neurotransmitter. One of the reasons that we drink is to get that sort of feel-goods, as it were. But your brain is so clever, if it keeps having to go through that process and then fight really hard to maintain equilibrium again because there's too much dopamine, it starts to gently put you into dopamine deficit. So what that means is it knows at some point quite soon it's going to get this fake spike of dopamine. So to prepare in advance, instead of you being at, let's just say, dopamine neutral, it starts to put you into dopamine negative to give it a bit of a head start, which makes sense. But what that means is the small joys of life are no longer joyful. And I used to describe my world as feeling grey. I just didn't have a better word for it. It just felt like something was wrong. Grey was all I had. The world felt less technicolor. It felt less exciting, enjoyable. It just felt like a slog. Like sunrises, sunsets, didn't really care. Hugs with loved ones, not so much.
Yeah.
And then I started to understand the neurology of this and realize what happens. And you see this all the time, right, Ben? And you're going to know this big time. When I stopped drinking, all of a sudden, it's like, there's a sunrise. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Have you seen this sunrise out the door? Go and look at that sunrise. There's a sunset. I've never noticed that sunset before. Let's just go and watch a sunset. Let's hug. Yeah. Let's have a nice cuddle, or let me stay in there for a bit longer because this feels lovely again. And what I realized is, like, think about that. Alcohol, even as an average drinker, was stealing the joy out of life. I mean, that is just, it's horrific when you think about it. It was stealing the joy from my life. It was making it feel grey. Removed alcohol, boom, full technicolor.
Yeah.
What a gift. What a gift. But also, when you reflect the other side, how sad that sort of 4 pints, nothingy pints on a Saturday, like you said, watching the football, would make your world feel great. But most people are just unaware. That's sort of why I do this in many ways.
I completely get how you were feeling like your world was grey and tough and a slog. Like, I had that as well. And I knew for months and months it was something I had to address. And aesthetically, I could see, a couple of my good friends who had decided to become alcohol free. You can see them, looking better. It's like, my God, mate, you're looking good. Bloody hell, what's the secret? Oh, you've stopped boozing. My goodness, your career's flying. You're taking chances. You're effervescent. You've got that drive, that spark back. And it was just cutting out the booze. And what I love as well now, like when I first became alcohol free, the addiction, I've had my hair done as well, Andy, so I'm a right old poser, but just the difference in like your skin, you can see it in your eyes as well. And the number of people saying, my God, you look good. And it is lovely sometimes to think, you know what, I'm working hard for this. I'm working hard to look and feel good. And I'm going to embrace that. And there are just so many great positives, aren't there? It is mind-blowing. It's magical. And did it take a while for you to address your issue though, Andy? Initially, was that a scary moment for you?
Yeah, I think it is for everyone. Again, as an average drinker, and like I almost joked about before, alcohol was still part of almost every facet of my life. You know, just celebrations, commiserations, stressful days, weddings, business, especially the career that I was in. It was very sociable, and I was that guy. And I think that's really hard. I think there is a sort of a letting go in many ways of the former you. But what I realized was that alcohol was turning me into someone that I wasn't. It was creating this caricature version of me, which was great inside the pub. But then the next day, that character was gone, right? And in its place was a much lesser version of the real me. Therefore, like, think about that as well. Over time, you lose who you really are. You lose your authentic self, because I'm either this fake character that alcohol creates, or a lesser character in the aftermath of the damage that alcohol's doing to my mental health and physical health. So I'm rarely ever me, rarely ever authentically me. So yeah, it was quite a drastic change. You know, there was fear around my career. I got told by my mentor, my hero in the industry, if you continue to not drink, you're finished, because who's going to want to do business with a broker that doesn't drink? You know, I worried that my mates might disown me because that's how we socialized. And my big fear was my lovely wife, Tara. Was she going to like run off with the fun time postman that likes a couple of pints? But my biggest fear, and I always joke about it, but it's genuinely true, my number one fear was this: how the hell am I going to dance at weddings? Yeah. How's that going to happen? Like, middle-aged ginger bloke throwing some shapes, sober, that's just not what? That just can't happen. That just can't happen. And like, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous that was in my brain saying almost, you can't stop drinking because what if you have to go to a wedding and dance? I mean, it's completely nutty, isn't it? Yeah. But I know that's what lives in most people's brains. Things like that get in the way of them doing something that might change their life. Literally transform their life, like it's done for me. Oh, I can't do it because on the off chance I get invited to a wedding and I might have to dance. Therefore, I'm going to continue to drink. It's nuts.
Yeah. And did you find becoming alcohol-free gave you like a fearlessness? And funnily, Andy, I found that my career is flourishing. I'm more confident. I'm more productive because I am my authentic self. And it's not like, oh, I don't care what people think about me. Of course, one has to behave correctly in certain work situations and environments. But I think being my authentic self has completely opened so many doors for me. I know that I've taken away this alcohol like cling film and it's me, and here we go. It's like it's opened a lot of doors for me.
Yeah, this is a really important topic. I genuinely believe, and I get to work with lots of real elite performers as a coach now. I work again with the Professional Footballers Association as part of their business school. For decades, I've coached elite performers from business and athletes, and from the actors, actresses. It's the same thing every time. Every single time. It never, ever fails to let me down. If someone is an average drinker and I'm working with them and they take a break from alcohol, guess what? Their career takes off in ways that it's never taken off before. There is a new energy. Like, we communicate at the level of energy. We absolutely do. When someone is their authentic self, it's attractive. It's just attractive, right? You know this person is them. They're not like I was a fake version of me and then a lesser version of me the day after. I was never really me. Whereas when you show up and shine now as you, right? Warts and all, no one's perfect. There is a different confidence. There is a different energy. There's a different resilience because you're used to dealing with all of life's challenges and hurdles, successes and failures without having to resort to the F it button, as it were, or trying to blot it all out. It's like, no, I'm owning all of this. So therefore, in your career, when you start to show up to those confidence challenges, which you face lots of, especially in your industry, no doubt, in the world of acting and you know, auditions and all those type of things, showing up to that with a newfound, like, or a rediscovered confidence, which is authentically you, that just sends out a different energy that I know the people on the receiving end of that will pick up on. And also, you'll be more resilient. And it might be that you bounce back quicker and you do go to that extra audition, or you do make that extra call that you wouldn't quite have bothered to have done before because you were feeling a bit jaded or less confident. So I actually think for anyone in their career, one of the greatest gifts you can ever give it is to remove alcohol.
You mentioned the sort of elite sportsmen that you're coaching, and you coach business leaders as well. Andy, do you find that they're very receptive initially to what you're trying to convey to them? Is there any do they put up any walls initially? And how rewarding for you is it when you can see that, oh my goodness, this is going to help my career?
Yeah, I mean, so I do lots of different types of mentoring, coaching, training.
Yeah.
Some of it has nothing to do with being alcohol free. It sort of always sits under what I do. Some of it is very specific, people that want to take a break. But then I'll have for certain people or certain arenas, for example, I do one-to-one coaching. I'll only take clients on if they want to take a break from alcohol during the time that we work together. So it's almost a prerequisite. And if it's like, no, I'm an average drinker, I've got no interest in stopping, that's fine. Then I haven't got the time to work for you, because I know that the results that you'll get will always be 10 times, 100 times better if you're not drinking. Therefore, I'm really limited on my time and who I work with. Therefore, I'm just going to cherry pick. If you do want to come and work with me, brilliant. But it's going to mean that you take a break from alcohol during that period. And guess what? You know, I train coaches now. So a big part of what I do, I train coaches. I'm like, it's like this superpower. Everyone thinks I'm this like hero of a coach, and I'm like, I sort of know what I'm doing. I'm basically encouraging them to take a break from alcohol and then letting them loose on the world. And guess what? They've got more time. They've got more energy. Their skin looks better. They're losing some weight. They're more consistent. They're getting better results in their career. They're happier. They're healthier. And they're looking at me like I've got some magic wand. And I'm like, yeah, I sort of have. It's the alcohol-free bit that really is doing all the work. I'm just gently guiding you along that path.
And I'm kind of really interested to know that for how long did you know that you had an initial little problem with alcohol? Did you feel during your footballing career that, maybe we're kind of overdoing, we're celebrating a win too much, or were you just so enveloped in that environment that it was kind of just the done thing?
Yeah, it wasn't really in my football career at all, really, although I was celebrating on Saturday. But if I wind the clock back, I think it was misadventure. So what I mean by that is, when we grew up, there was nothing else to do from the age of 12, 13, apart from, that's what it felt like to me, get alcohol, drink alcohol. Could you get into a pub? Fake ID. I mean, I just spent my entire teen years, it felt like, drinking in different shapes and guises because I was really awkward, and I was quite shy, and I'm quite introverted. Therefore, for me, being exposed to this drug at a really young age, which was 12 or 13, it was like an elixir. I can't deny that, right? I drank that liquid. I felt this magic confidence. I didn't feel awkward. That my little brain would have lit up like a Christmas tree and just said, like, whatever you did, whenever you experienced that emotional pain of awkwardness, or you want to talk to girls, in my example, drink that liquid and you'll feel amazing. So I just kept playing that habitual like loop over and over and over and over again in many ways. So during my football career, I was too busy playing football, really. But of course, we'd celebrate on a Saturday, different. It was more stepping into, the arena when I got injured around 21, 22. So football career was over. But then it was gloves off. So it was any sort of confidence challenge, any slight social anxiety. Oh, I've got a trick for this. I just drink alcohol. And I never really questioned it. So it only just sort of grew in my life. But again, would I say it was ever seriously problematic? No, because it wasn't. There's no rock bottom in my story. I didn't do anything horrific. I didn't get into any like big trouble with it. But it was just consistently around. Do you know what I mean? And then you sort of wake up at some point in your life. Mine was my mid-30s and went, actually, I don't think this is fun anymore. In fact, I don't think this is giving me what it once did, which was this confidence. And maybe it did when I was 13, but now I'm a 35-year-old man, running businesses. I don't need that anymore. In fact, now it's doing the opposite. It's not giving me confidence anymore. It's been taking it away for decades. So that was sort of the awakening for me to think, right, I'm going to do something about this. It's
so interesting, isn't it? Within the social world, I was always, the fun Ben, give him a bit of Brucey, a bit of Michael Caine. And, you think that's the role I'm there to play. I was an actor, so effervescent on stage, and everyone's on a high, curtain down, we rush to the pub 4 pints before last orders on tour somewhere. And you think, and, my word, had some wonderful times, of course, as I'm sure you did with your colleagues in the city. Just great people, great fun. But again, there was no rock bottom for me. It was just a gradual ebb of feeling exhausted, feeling this just isn't good for me anymore. I'm getting more and more anxious in my own life, in work, and I'm just slowing down. And when you make that decision, it's just wonderful, isn't it? And I've got you to thank so much, honestly, for your social media content. It's just like, it was almost like, it's okay, other people feel like this, and you know what, life's going to be really good. There's so many other people online who put out that same message, and it's almost like this beautiful growing community, Andy, I think, of support out there to think, yeah, we've bloody well enjoyed the booze, we've had some amazing life highs, but let's ditch the warm Fosters on the train home, because life can get even better. So honestly, thank you.
It's lovely to see that. Again, having been involved in this for over a decade now, when it wasn't a thing, when I first came to this. And the reason that I stepped into this arena, because I had my own lovely experience and looked around and thought, there is nothing. There is no communities. There's nothing online. It just doesn't exist. There is only that traditional support for those in recovery, dependency, which is wonderful work. But that's not where I was. I was in that middle lane. And that inspired me to start the one, Be a Challenge, and write our first book, and that movement. And then to see that really evolve has been brilliant, because for the first 5 years, in all truth, no one understood a word I was saying. They were like, what's he banging on about? What do you mean? You stop drinking even if you haven't got a problem. People are like, no, I can't, I don't understand that. You only don't drink if you've got a whopping great big problem. If you don't, why would you stop drinking? That just does not make sense. So for 5 years, anyone I ever did an interview with or podcast with would be like, yeah, but you had a problem, right? And I was like, no. Yeah, but how much did you drink? And I was like, well, just averagely. And they were like, they couldn't get it. And to see, over really the last 5 years, since the growth of alcohol-free drinks alternatives, the whole middle lane now becoming this big space, and then obviously the social media influencers and podcasts, and it's just been this glorious change. And then, alcohol-free drinks now, which are everywhere, which is incredible, which wasn't, again, wind the clock back 10 years, that wasn't a thing. It just wasn't available. So, yeah, I feel very privileged to be a part of this whole experience and see where it is today, which I think will inspire so many people. This is like my dream of where I wanted it 10 years ago. It feels like we're realizing that now, which is pretty cool.
Oh, you helped so many people, and if we could just have a little chat about Dryy Fest as well. That's an amazing idea. How?
Yeah, so really that was a bit of Matt Pink. So Matt Pink is the co-founder of Dryy, which is our app, Dryy, so as an extra Y, which is an alcohol-free community online and offline. They all met in Ireland just this weekend. We have loads of in-person meetups, which is lovely. And I just heard Chris Evans was talking about it on his Virgin Radio show again today, wow, which is so cool. So Dryy Fest really came about exactly that. It was an idea for a festival that just doesn't involve alcohol, which is pretty rare, if not one of the first in many ways. So live music, loads of connection, family fun, but without that fear that come, whatever it is, 4:00 in the afternoon, you can start seeing people face first in the mud kind of festival vibes. Oh God, yeah. So it was lovely. Again, all the hard work of Matt Pink rather than myself. I'm like the Gary Lineker of the Dryy world. I just show up at the last minute and bang one in from about 2 yards. I'm more of a goal hanger in that regard, but Matt did all the work. But it's a beautiful. It was such a lovely experience, I must admit, and we're doing more and more of that. I think to try and just create different style of connection, because here's the thing, you don't drink, I still want to go out and socialize, but the truth is this, and this is an honest truth, that what spoils most social occasions is alcohol. Now for me, is the truth of it. If I'm with people or around people that are drinking to that point of drunkenness, let's say, it spoils it. And I'm only aware of that now. And like we said, we all had some great times whilst drinking, and I did, to be fair. But I'm sure those people around me that weren't drinking didn't have a very great time, if you know what I mean. They were probably going, what the hell is that? I've probably ruined many people's evenings. And, even we went to Wimbledon this year, right? And we were lucky enough to get tickets in the ballot, right? I was so thrilled. We love Wimbledon. So we go to Centre Court, we're on Wimbledon. We've had a really beautiful day. And the whole chunk of the row next to us was corporate. So they're not really there for the tennis, right? They're there just to get on it. They weren't really around all day because, again, they obviously were just in the drinks tent. They weren't bothering to watch the tennis. Of course, they all trundle back in, and we're watching Andy Murray, like one of his last Wimbledon on centre court, and they're all tanked up, right? And again, I've been that sorry soldier so many times, right? So, I have to own it. But of course, the guy sits next to me, not interested in tennis. All he wants to do is crack jokes, which you politely laugh at for the first one or two. Yeah. And then when it gets to the 10th, you're like, oh, mate, leave me alone. I just want to watch the tennis. To such a point, I had to get up with Tara because the place was emptying out a bit and just physically move away. And I just thought, yet again, here we are at this beautiful sporting occasion. And what really has spoilt it spoil it, but it did in that moment, was someone else getting drunk again. It's like, bore off. It's just, I'm at the other side of this so far now. I'm like, I just think that's the most boring thing in the world. Sitting there thinking you're funny when clearly you're not. And he probably went home and went, what a great day. Oh, wasn't I funny? I was cracking up all those people. Yeah, all the people thinking, just leave us alone. Do you know what I mean? But not funny.
It's so funny. Likewise, a number of tickets I've had to like great gigs and love Sting. I saw Sting in Hammersmith a few years ago. Off my face, Andy. Could barely remember a bit of Fields of Gold. But the whole trip was about getting to the bar, getting drunk before Sting came on. Frank Skinner live, amazing stand-up, love him. Just pissed, couldn't remember half the jokes. How stupid to be lucky enough to have tickets for such a wonderful experience, and you just go and ruin it all by boozing. But that's the go-to, isn't it? It seems to be the go-to, and the enjoyment now I get from seeing live music or some live comedy, a theatre performance, because I'm completely embracing it, appreciating their creativity, the hard work that's gone into entertaining an audience. And I just think, God, for years it was just, okay, let's find a bar. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I went to Coldplay in Dublin, Croke Park, a few weeks ago. I think it's one of the best evenings of my life, let alone gigs, to be part of that energy. Now, that was incredible. Whatever it was, 85,000 people coming together, joyous. Ireland's such a beautiful place. I love Ireland. My wife's Irish. I spend a lot of time there. They're brilliant people. They know how to really enjoy themselves in that regard. And it wasn't all about the drink. It was for some people, but clearly not for me. And it was just joyous. I thought, imagine if like there was some alien flying over above and they could sense the energy that was coming from this little space of 85,000 souls joyously connecting over this music, and to be a part of that. And I'll remember it forever. And I can tell the story about it now, as opposed to if I wound the clock back to 12 years ago, it would have been a mess. The whole thing would have been in the pub, late there, hurry up, quick, running up and down to the bar. And I would have come away and said, oh, great night. Yeah, great night. But it would have been crap. It is the truth of it. I would never remember it like I do now. So it's the classic. But I think what we do have to own, and my friend Matt Pink says this and I love it, when you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. And I think that's the case for so many people in their relationship with alcohol. They're so deep inside the jar, they can't actually comprehend that going to a concert and not drinking down the line might be the best night of their life. It's like, what? They can't comprehend that actually throwing some shapes at a wedding might still hurt a bit, but they might still enjoy it. They can't comprehend that holidays get better. They can't comprehend that actually you're going to feel and look so much better. And the only way really to figure all that stuff out is to get outside the bloody jar for long enough to figure it out, be it 28 days or 90 days or whatever it is. And I think that's what I've been doing for the last decade, is trying to encourage people to get outside the jar, have a little look at it, join me on the fun side of the island, and then they see what I see, and then it's easy. Because it's like, I'm not going back in the jar. Why do I put myself back in there when I'm getting all this wins outside?
Yeah. Well, my jar was a very long jar. I'm 6'6", Andy. But goodness, I never thought I would climb out of it. If someone said to me, "Oh, you won't drink again," I'd be like, "What? Come on! I work in cricket. I work in sport. I'm in theatre. It's of course I'm going to drink again. I enjoy it." But then, weirdly, when I had my hair transplant, it was the doctor said, right, you have to stop drinking for 4 weeks because it thins the blood for the new hair. And I was like, what? I was like, no, it's my birthday in 2 weeks. And of course, birthday, we booked a restaurant, going to go and have some drinks, of course. But But it was my girlfriend, actually, Rita, who said, you know what, I don't think you won't drink again. And I was like, oh, come on. But I think she knew, I think she saw in me that it had become tiresome, that I was a good enough chap without it, and I wasn't fulfilling my potential in life. And she's been so supportive. Like, did you feel like you needed that support initially for you, Andy, from your loved ones?
Yeah, and my wife was brilliant. And if you think about it, like at the time I decided to go alcohol free, which is, as I say, 10 years ago, that was probably just over halfway, through our relationship. So I've been alcohol free longer now than I've been drinking in our relationship. But up until that point, we didn't know any different, right? Because we met whilst drinking. Tara would drink, she don't like me saying this, but she would drink pints. Lots of Irish girls did at the time, drink pints, right? Which was something we didn't see in the UK. So we would be sort of thick as thieves in that. So for one of you to step away from that, there's fear on both sides, isn't there? There's fear on my side. What's that going to mean? There's fear on Tara's side. What's that going to mean? But she was, I've got to say, I mean, she's everything to me, as are my girls as well. But she's literally there for me and my biggest fan with all of this. And I do remember occasions. So we started this movement called One No Beer, as mentioned. And, I went alcohol free, was inspired, wanted to create something. So I partnered up with this guy called Dryy, who was inspired by me to take a break. So he was only ever going to take a break. So for me, it was like long term. I'm never going back. He did a year and decided to have a drink at the end of that year, right? Totally his choice. That was the movement was 1 year, no beer. So he did his year and decided to go back and have a drink. So I was about 18 months into my adventure at that stage, and it threw me. Like, it really threw me a wobble, because it was a little bit like, hold on, well, if he can start drinking again, maybe I can have a drink. It was one of these, it just caught me totally from left field. And I remember it was a Saturday and Tara was out, and I reckon I paced up and down the kitchen for it felt like about 4 hours. It couldn't have been 4 hours, but it felt like it was. And I was going up and down going, well, if he can have a drink, I can have a drink. Like, why wouldn't I have a drink? There was no problem in the first place. I was just an average drinker, thinking, in a weird way, when Tara comes home and I tell her this, she's going to secretly go, yay, brilliant. Yeah, all right, just don't tell anyone. Let's crack open a bottle or whatever. And of course, she walks through the front door and I tell her all this, and she just stops dead in her tracks and just went, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you go back there? Remember how tired you were, how lethargic you were. Look how far you've come. What? Why would you go back? And it was such a brilliant moment from her. For me, it was like, snapped me out of that state and like, yeah, you're right. And that's it. I've never ever, since that day, it's never ever crept back into my mind once, which is pretty cool.
And do you have little things in place during your week, Andy, where sometimes you might be feeling a little bit blue, a little bit sad maybe? Would you say just get out there, engage with people, just hello to somebody at a bus stop, or just a morning walk, just something that can lift you, but also maybe lift somebody else, lift a stranger for the day?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I have this mantra. I'm always playing around with mantras. Bear in mind, I'm at this a long while, right? So I'm so invested in self-development and coaching and training coaches, but I really try and live the learning. Like, my thing is, what's the point in reading all this incredible insight, philosophy and the great thinkers, and then not implement it? So at the moment, I have this real desire to radiate joy. So I have this mantra of radiating joy. I just think it's a beautiful thing to carry around with you. So every interaction with someone, I'm trying to think, how can I radiate joy? Which is usually just through something very simple, which is to look them in the eye and smile, or engage in small talk, or whatever it might be. And that lifts me up, that lights me up. I just think, what if I could go through life like that? And a lot of the time people don't want to engage, with you. There's some big ginger bloke walking down the street going, like looking them right in the eye with a big smile. They're like, Jesus, keep walking. There's a bit of that going on, but still.
Yeah, well, I'm like Big Bird. I get some odd looks. I'm like,
for you 6'6", I'm 6'6". They're probably like, oh, blimey. Especially if it's like through the alleyway that I walk. It's like, oh, God, head down. So it's not always reciprocated, I'd say that much. But I know the names of everyone, right? So if I walk into the coffee shop, I know everyone's name. There might be 8 people in there, and I make the effort to learn their names, which they love, right? Because so few people do. make that effort to know where they're, a lot of them are, over here working and they've got beautiful homes in some other country and know where they're from and get, it just sparks joy for me anyway. And that sort of mantra is really important to me. But then on top of that, some tactics. I think what also happens when you stop drinking, you really start to notice what else affects your mental well-being. Yeah. So for me, if I don't exercise, it affects my mental health. And if I eat rubbish food, it really affects my mental well-being. So that motivates me to eat better, to move more and sleep well. So what I find is all those lovely combinations of being alcohol-free and moving more and sleeping better and eating better, suddenly you find that the lows are very infrequent, as it were, or nowhere near as regular as they once were, which is a pretty beautiful thing as well.
Yeah, well, you're looking in good shape, Andy, I have to say. I love to ask my guests in Benjy's Cafe, what's on the dinner menu tonight?
Do you know what? There's a funny conversation I had just today. I'm thinking of inversing my whole meal plan. So what I mean by that is making my first meal of the day the big meal. Like people would traditionally cook for your evening meal.
Yeah.
And mine's been plant-based at times, fully plant-based. I did that for 6-7 years. It's probably something in the middle, mostly plants now is the truth of it, but still with small eggs and fish and whatnot. But I'm thinking of inversing the whole thing, right? Because conventional wisdom just trips us up all the time. Conventional wisdom told me I needed to drink alcohol to have fun. Untrue. Conventional wisdom told me I needed to eat loads of meat to be a man. Untrue. So wherever I see conventional wisdom, I want to flip it on its head. I think about 3 meals a day. Why do we even do that? That's just something we do, right? Yeah. Not necessarily because it's the best, most optimal for us. And we eat breakfasty stuff at breakfast, don't we? And we eat dinnery stuff at dinner. But who says that? Who's the dinner police? Who's the breakfast police that says you've got to have your porridge at 10 a.m, you can't have it at 10 p.m? So I'm always playing around with stuff. So I just said to Tara today, right, I'm inversing everything because my energy's in the morning. So I've got much less energy to be bothered to cook something nice of an evening, right? So if I flip it around, I've got all my energy of a morning. So I'll fast. I always fast to about 1 p.m. So one, I'm hungry. I've got all of my energy. That first meal, it's always your tastiest meal if you've been fasting. So I'm thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the big meal, like my exciting meal that takes a bit of effort, one. Then after that, I'll have my brunchy kind of meal. And then I'll finish with my porridge and flax seeds and berries and all that good stuff in the evening, because that's the easiest thing to make.
And just quickly before we head off for a lovely Monday ahead, Andy, your training diplomas for alcohol-free coaching, executive coaches, and life coaches, that must be so rewarding for you. Is that lovely when you see how you're helping other people? Yeah,
that was my whole thing. I lucked into that 12 years ago, trained as a coach, changed my life as an executive coach. I eventually left the city, the broken world, to create my own training institute. So now I train coaches, alcohol-free coaches, life coaches, executive coaches. I love it. For me, that's that transformational learning experience. I want people to learn how to optimize their own life. And then if they can pay that forward by helping other people, that magnifies that reach. So hopefully, and we, like the Dryy App, for example, is a brilliant example of that. That is helping hundreds of thousands of people right now. That was born out of me training Matt Pink as a coach. And I could give you 10 of those different types of things, as well as people just using it in their careers, volunteering, just making them better parents or partners. What a gift. I feel very, very fortunate that I get to do that.
Yeah, well, you're wonderful, Andy. We're talking about going against convention. Mondays in the past for me would have been grey, getting through the day, full of anxiety. Oh, God, what's the world got in store for me this week? But today has been joyous. It's been a lovely start to the day, Andy. I admire you so much in your work. Keep being human barocca. You're so bloody effervescent, and you really help me. And I know a lot of our listeners are going to really find this chat interesting. So what a start to the week. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me in Benjy's Cafe podcast. Andy Ramage. Thank you, Andy.
Top man, Ben. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Benjy's Cafe podcast. I find Andy just so inspiring, and hope you do too. You can find all of Andy's links on the episode notes. Make sure you hit follow so every episode gets sent straight to your phone. Tell your friends, tell your family, and if you can, please leave a review. No booking required, and a brand spanking new episode every Tuesday. Just find us wherever you get your podcasts. In episode 29, I'm joined by the star of the musical Hamilton, Emily May. I'll get the kettle. Have a great day.